Hey everyone, Mary Imbolc. This is Anastasia Autumnfire, and I wanted to do a quick share of my Imbolc candle that I just finished up tonight. A friend of mine, Jamie, asked that I do a tutorial, kind of a step-by-step on how I personally make candles. I'm totally doing that. Unfortunately, I'd already poured this bad boy, so I wasn't able to do it with my Imbolc candle, but I have a lot of other projects that will require candle making, so I will definitely get that done, but I wanted to share the finished product on this one with you tonight. I almost lose it. So this is my Imbolc candle, and honestly, I think so, I think this is true of most people that craft. The more you craft, the more it's like, ooh, I really like that. Ooh, I really like that. You kind of start to this is by far my favorite candle I've ever made. I absolutely adore it. I love it. It is so completely what I wanted. I'm finding this Imbolc is really so connected. And I think that's because I've kind of put the books away for this. I think oftentimes what can happen when we craft is we can get so bogged down by correspondences and tradition and what everyone else is using and what the right and the wrong things are to do, if that makes sense. Well, we have to use this certain herb because that's what makes sense to us. I remember early on in my practice going to Mega's bookshop in Minneapolis, and I needed to get St. John's wort because it was Litha, and that's what you do. You use that herb. And the guy behind the counter was really nice, but he kind of smiled. He's like, I personally would only use it if it connects to you. He's like for me, chamomile is much more about Litha, and that's just something that I really connect with it. And I was like, well, that's in the books too. I'm such a correspondence nerd that I get bogged down sometimes by those, and creativity and intuition aren't really able to take over. I don't craft that often with solely based on intuition. And I can't say this was solely based either. I think there was still a decent amount of tradition that I upheld, but I am combining it with this kind of personal side of things or personal correspondences or how I associate to the season. And I think that is when you get very connected to your items and to your crafts, to things that you create. I think that's true in art in and of itself. When it is something that comes from within and is very personal to you, you are going to be drawn to that so much more than a piece that you really didn't draw on any personal reverence or memory or what have you. So it's kind of a duh type of a deal. Like, duh, Anna, of course you're going to feel more connected to this stuff because you're using personal thoughts as opposed to just what the books say. But I really view it as a perfect combination for Imbolc because Imbolc, I often connect to kind of the first welcoming of spring, but really we're still very much in winter. Winter's halfway done. That does not mean it's done. The crone is still very much here in some respects. Yes, the goddess is reborn. She is in her maiden. But in Minnesota, we are still feeling the crone's energy super hard. So I've really enjoyed crafting and working with Imbolc this year, creating rituals, kind of doing some very deep searching work. It really is the perfect combination of the crone and the maiden for me because I have this crone. I'm working with the crone to work on my intuition and okay, this kind of makes sense to me. Should I follow that? Well, what does your gut say? My gut says yes, then do it. That kind of push that I need, but it's still flowing and creative and open. I'm finding that as I'm creating and discovering, well, of course this is connecting for me, because if you look at this season, it's going to connect to this. And here's kind of what I mean by that. So for this candle, for instance, I knew I wanted the candle base to be white, and that was a traditional correspondence. White is a color for Imbolc. It connects to the snow, as well as the purity and purification that it can bring. But whereas normally I just write an invocation or a blessing along the body, this time I did kind of a shorter blessing that only took up the front part. The front blessing reads, it is not my own. This is something that I found online. The author is unknown. Sorry, I was just adjusting and realized the camera went out of whack. Candle, candle, burning bright, winter's halfway done tonight. With a glowing, we are knowing, spring will come again. And I, of course, did transfer that into the witch's alphabet because I love it. And at the bottom here, I have the sigil for Imbolc. Then, as we turn to the back, these you can't see too well because of the cascade. But here I had the birch ogum. I believe it's pronounced Beth, which stands for renewal, youth, and revitalization. It stands for the birch tree. So birch tree is definitely a correspondence to Imbolc. It is all about that life, death, and rebirth, really focusing on that rebirth cycle, which is what Imbolc is about. Then on the other side here, I have the Nordic rune, and I need to grab my pronunciation guide because I wrote it all down because I was smart this time. Burkendo. Nope, there's no D. Burkendo. There it is. Sorry about that. Can't read my own writing. Which is the rune for becoming. It also, I believe it translates to the Lady of Birch, or the Birch Lady. So it also is representative of the birch. And I found this, and I didn't write down the website, so I apologize, but I did find this, and this really struck me. Someone's personal thought was, the birch is the first tree to awaken in the springtime, and so it is about the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And that's kind of what I just said, but I love that. For me, because I have a blended path, I work with a Celtic god and a Norse goddess. I like that I'm able to, there are symbols for both that connect to the birch tree and connect to Imbolc. I know in Norse, in heathenism at least, they do not, I believe it is called, I don't think it's Ladies' Day, I think it's something about the plow, Pretty the Plow, or something along those lines. I am so sorry. I should have written that down. Next year, that's actually something I really need to focus more clearly on, is incorporating some more Norse traditions into my practice, because hell is getting on me about that. But for right now, this is what I've got. Anyway, sorry about that. I should have been better prepared. And then again, you can't really see because the cascade really took over, but in the witch's alphabet, I wrote Imbolc. And then again, we have 2 of those Imbolc sigils. So we have 3 Imbolc sigils, Maiden, Mother, Crone, as always. She is recognized. So then on top, I cascaded with, it turned out really cool. I love how it turned out. I cascaded with lilac and lavender wax. However, the lavender wax was a little hot when I put it on here. That's why the cascade kind of took over. And when that happens, the white from the body of the candle also kind of merged and melted. And so we kind of get this marbleizing effect. And I really dug that because, again, this Imbolc has been such a combination of crone and maiden for me, and crone being symbolized with kind of darker colors like the purple, and then maiden with the white. I I don't know why that's how I focus on it. I understand some probably would see that switched. Um, but for me, the darker of the two colors represents the crone. Also, purple represents spiritual enlightenment and divine focus, and really connects to that third eye chakra. Um, so that is where the crone energy is for me. I understand some people might not have that connection, but for me, that is what it is. Um, so I really liked how those two colors ended up mingling and merging, and I think it speaks beautifully for what has happened this season with me. And then on top, as the wax kind of dried, normally what I do is I wait for it to dry, then I put the herbs in, and then I take one of my little spell candles. I'll show you those just for reference sake. Here's a yellow one that I've got, just one of these. I inscribe upon them any intent I have. For this, I just simply wrote Imbolc over and over. I kept it simple. And then I will light it and put it through. And for this, I took the lavender wax that I had, because it was already mixed from a previous candle that I had made, and I inscribed on the wax in the pan Imbolc over and over and over. But originally I had a green candle because I thought it would be good to symbolize the fertility and the growth that will be coming with the spring. And I was going to put the herbs around. I was going to do a purple cascade or a lavender cascade, then put the herbs around, then drip the green around and have those three colors. But after I saw kind of how this lavender was working out and how the white was also kind of flowing into it, I didn't want that green anymore. I didn't want that in there. So I simply took the herbs from my Imbolc mix. And I know in that video I said I was going to charge with an amethyst, an onyx, and a clear quartz. I also did add a bloodstone because if we look at the elemental correspondences, earth, air, fire, and water. And all four are also stones for Imbolc traditionally. So I liked having a little bit of tradition thrown in. So I took some of the incense and sprinkled it around on top while the wax was still hot. And it kind of melted in with the candle. And then I did pour a little bit more over the top, just a little light bit, so it didn't over encompass, but it held the herbs in, any ones that weren't really stuck in there. And then, as you can see, I have 4 chips, crystal chips in there, given the correspondences of my house: earth, air, fire, and water, north, east, south, and west. And all 4 are amethyst. Originally, I was thinking about doing chips that corresponded like these did, but again, this Imbolc has been really about, it really has been amethyst. I mean, everything that I've done connects to the amethyst crystal. It is about, yes, it is about love, but it is about a higher love. Yes, it is about cleansing, but it's about cleansing that is going to enlighten you and bring you through a journey. It is about higher vibrations, but something that is going to aid your mysticism, aid your intuition, aid your magic. I mean, that really, it's been about raising energy, but it's about raising energy to serve a very distinct purpose. I mean, it is this Sabbath for me, I'm thinking that's what this year is for me. This year seems to be very focused everything that I do, even when I try to be kind of whimsical and off the cuff and flighty, ends up, my crafts at least, end up being very focused. Um, and I've got to believe there is something kind of coming down the pipeline that perhaps I'm not sure of yet or don't know about yet. But I really feel as though this year happenstance seems to be leading me somewhere. So I'm kind of going with it. I'm not fighting it. In my mundane life, Anna Hoffman totally would fight that because I like things being a certain way in my practice. And I think my Lord, my Lady, the spirits, the ancestors, elements, good folk, what have you, the energies that be are basically smacking me upside the head saying, no, you're going to follow this. You need to see where this leads without you controlling every aspect. And, you know, as much craziness as there's been, it's been a very enlightening journey so far. So I am rolling with it. And wow, this video has turned into something very different than I expected. Sorry. So yes, color correspondences. We have white for the snow, for the purity, for the cleansing. I chose purple originally to reflect, and I did scent it with lilac oil. Again, just kind of that fresh spring breeze coming through and kind of working through the snow to clear it out and welcome the spring wind back to the earth. Originally, I was going to put in some green to focus on the fertility and the growth, but I actually think the herbs kind of showing through a bit more than normal give that element of renewal and fertility and hope. I as I'm talking here, I just suddenly feel that is a major component to this candle. It is supposed to help welcome and release hope. I feel like as much as I know many of us resonate with the dark of the year, many of us like going internal and working through our stuff because it's a very witchy thing to do, especially if you're a witch. It's it's very good to get into ourselves and meditate and focus. It's always been something I've hated doing because I don't like quiet. I don't like being alone. I really struggle with that. And this year I've loved every second of it. But sometimes when we are alone so much, sometimes when we do focus on the inner self so much, we can get bogged down. There is a lot of negativity to contemplate. There's a lot of negativity to meditate on and think through and try to fix and send positivity out. And I think sometimes we just need a bit of fresh air and hope to guide us through. And that sounds way more deep and hippy dippy than I need it to. But that was ultimately my point for the lavender color, was to bring a bit of spring, bring a bit of fun. Of all things to serve as inspiration, this is going to sound psychotic, and I realize that, and I am embracing it. My daughter loves a cartoon called Ever After High, and you know what? Screw it, so do I. I love Ever After High. I love it, love it, love it. And they have this special called Spring Unsprung, and they call it the Spring Fairest Festival. I'm cringing just saying it, but bear with me. They do this tradition where they take ribbons and put it in trays. And they have black and white to represent winter because you have cold and ice and kind of dark. But then you add a ribbon of floral color to represent hope, that spring will will come again. And that is Imbolc for me. That is what it is about. Winter is halfway over, and we're excited because we know the light is building up energy. We know that that will be coming again. And that was kind of my inspiration for this. I realized as I'm yammering on was that thought was in my head of black and white for winter, but add some color for the hopefulness that spring brings. So that was the lavender. And I think I might be backtracking. I apologize. Then with the 4 amethyst, I was led to that. Amethyst does happen to be a traditional stone for Imbolc, and I'm going to need to reseal that bad boy in there. Sorry. So amethyst is a traditional stone for Imbolc. It also is a stone that, if you look traditionally, corresponds with both air and water. Some references will say air, some references will say water, some will say both. So I thought that was perfect for this candle because it's the spring air cleanses and airs out that negative energy. We also look to the snow and the rains that will come in spring to cleanse and wash away the negativity. So we have cleansing from 2 of the 4 elements, and for me that are represented in spring. Obviously, fire can certainly purify and cleanse. Earth, salt comes from the earth, and that is very cleansing as well as protective. So certainly all 4 elements can cleanse and such, but when I think of spring, I think of water, I think of air. So I loved that I was kind of drawn to using the amethyst for all 4 crystals, and it also had that correspondence. It did connect to those 2 elements. The core of the candle, the wick, is anchored also by an amethyst. The inscriptions here that you see, kind of this reddish, it are the ground cloves. I wanted to keep with the I wanted to try to keep with the herbal blend that I made, and so when I dressed it with lilac oil, I did then rub it with the cloves to add that energy, add that determination, add that fire, because certainly Imbolc is all about fire as well. We have fires of inspiration, fires of creativity, fires of protection, fires of cleansing. We have those elemental purification, not stances. Oi, I'm sorry, this is a rough video. We have those elemental purification processes coming back. So I wanted to make sure fire was definitely represented in this. And, kind of with that, you have, granted, it is a candle, so fire is going to be represented. But I kind of liked that earth is represented with the herbs. And certainly stone comes from the earth as well. But you have fire in the candle, fire in the cloves that were used, air and water in the specific elemental correspondences of the stone. I love this candle. I think for me, it epitomizes what the season is for me. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I am sorry that I rambled so much. I hope that it made sense. I hope I didn't talk in circles. Oftentimes when I make these videos, I have my notes and I'll start talking and then I'll go off on a tangent or a story and then look back at my notes and go, oh crap, where did I leave off? So I apologize if I kind of backtracked. I hope it made sense, and I hope everyone's having an amazing Imbolc. I am actually going to do my own little personal ritual now, and I will see you all later. Even though Imbolc is tonight, I still have a couple of circles to attend for it, so I have more crafting, and those will be up as they come. So blessed be as always, and I hope everyone has an amazing, amazing night. Blessed be as always. Bye, guys.